You apparently told them there was 11,000 miles on it, one owner vehicle, mint condition, etc., etc. You know, the usual talk that you get from a used car dealer.
You know, I told him about the car, what I knew about the car.
Had he wanted to know more, he could have checked with a company called Carfax, which can provide dealers with the entire title history of a car for as little as $3 a car. The Carfax report on the Walls car clearly shows it had been declared salvage in Texas. How many cars you got out here in your used car lot?
Probably 35 or 40.
Do you know the history of any of them, or you just take them in and say, and try to sell them? How many of them maybe have been in wrecks previously? Do you have any idea?
No.
You don't bother?
You try to check them and find the ones that's been wrecked.
Well, Carfax.
We don't have Carfax.
Why don't you have Carfax? Cost money?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you think it might be sensible to get Carfax? Because that's the way to find out what the history of the car is.
I don't know.
How long have you been in the business?
About 10 years.
And you've never ordered a Carfax on any used car that you've sold off this lot?
No.
The used car salesman hadn't bothered to tell them, so we did. We learned a little bit about this car this morning. Turns out that the car belonged to somebody in Joliet, Illinois, a young woman who had a head-on, and this apparently is not on the history that these people told you about.
That's sure right. I mean, they didn't tell us anything about the car being wrecked or anything. We'd asked.
Why don't we now go and see if we can find the fellas with whom you dealt?
Okay.
Shall we? Yes. Okay. We were told the salesman was no longer working at the dealership.
Yes, sir.
But we did find used car manager Jim Sanson. Would you sell a salvage car?
Would I sell a salvage car?
That's the question.
I understand.
Would you?
Not knowingly.
Well, you know that this car that these two youngsters have, is a salvage car.
No, I wasn't aware of that, no.
Well, I'm making you aware of it.
Okay.
I pointed out he could easily have found out about the history of the car through Carfax. That's how we found out.
True, but I had no reason to do that. I didn't know.
Well, they've been coming in 2-3 times to ask you whether the car indeed had been in a wreck.
What did I tell you?
You said that you didn't know because you'd have to find out from the previous owner.
You don't have to find out from the previous owner. Carfax will tell you that. You know that. You're a professional
I understand,
used car
but
dealer.
what I'm trying to say to you is that, I mean, this happened Tuesday. It's Friday.
And I only learned about this yesterday. I'd already found out about the car. You want to look at the Carfax?
Sure.
Take a look. What does it say?
It said it had its previous salvage title.
Right. That's all. I found that out in just a few minutes. You could have done the same.
True.
This is not an isolated case. We asked Carfax, a company which can trace vehicles, to run down the titles of 132 cars, labeled as lemons by the state of Indiana, then sold in other states. Every one of those new titles was clean. No indication the car was a lemon.
And one way to try to tell if the car you're thinking of buying has been tampered with is to check the title for the car's mileage. Carfax Incorporated will check titles against a 46-state database. You can call them at 1-800-346-3846. The service costs $20. We're getting a lot of calls.
Well, buying any used car brings questions about its history and previous owners. Was it in an accident? Does the odometer really reflect how many miles have rolled under the tires, or was it rolled back? Carfax is a company keeping a database on millions of vehicles being bought and resold. It's being used as a resource by dealers intent on beating false claims made by unscrupulous owners. Carfax President Dick Raines joins us from our Washington bureau. Dick, welcome.
Thanks.
What can I find out if I'm a dealer or if I'm a subscriber to your service and I give you a VIN, a vehicle identification number? What will you spit back at me?
We'll give you a report that gives you the history of that used car, and will help you find out whether that car might have a hidden problem. For example, you mentioned odometer rollbacks. Perhaps the odometer reading on that car is not the real reading and someone's rolled it back, or maybe it's over 100,000 miles. We'll also tell you whether the car has been totaled, been in a major wreck, had an accident, and has been taken over by the insurance company. And a lot of times you just can't find out that information by looking at the car. In our database, we have a database of over 150 million cars, and in that database we track all sorts of information about that used car.
Now, where do you get your information, of course, without revealing any trade secrets or anything like that? Where do you get your information about all of these vehicles?
Yeah, there's no secrets. We get it from three primary sources. Our largest source is motor vehicle departments. Every month, states across the United States give us electronic copies of titles. When a car changes hands, there's a title, and we got a copy of that title, and on that title there's an odometer reading and other information. We also get information from auto auctions. Those are the wholesalers of the auto business, and that information again gives us an odometer reading at the time of sale. And then lastly, we get information from insurance companies who may have taken over a car that's been in an accident and been, given a total loss, so to speak. So those three primary sources are what we built into our database, and they're all linked by that vehicle identification number. Every car has one of those vehicle identification numbers,
Sure.
And we can search our database using that VIN.
So you see, first you make sure the car will run okay on the highway. Next, you see how it checks out on the information superhighway. A company called Carfax can help you do just that. The Carfax computer database contains DMV records from 48 states. Just type in a vehicle identification number, and in minutes, you find out whether the car's a problem or a peach.
Looks like a clean car.
But the people at Carfax say 10 to 20% of the cars they check have some sort of problem. Every day, they hear the horror stories.
So, here was a car that the consumer thought they were buying as a sedan, was in fact, had the papers of a station wagon, which is pretty amazing.
Carfax doesn't have access to minor fender benders, but if the problem is big enough to make state records, you can find it here, by phone, by fax, or online.
In this case, the Carfax report shows that we have an odometer rollback.
The computer also reveals vehicles that were supposed to be sold for salvage only. Autos that waded through heavy floodwaters are listed here too. Even cars that have done hard time as taxi cabs may show up in the system.
In tonight's crime solution, used car scams. If you're not careful, you could get ripped off. Tonight we show you the most common con games and a way for you to avoid being victimized. You need a new car. You want to buy used instead of new. So you hit the want ads in your local paper. Most of those sellers are honest, but a few are not. The most common scams, rolling back the odometer to conceal the car's true mileage. Maybe the car was totaled and then rebuilt. Some sellers don't tell you that. Perhaps the car was damaged in a flood, but the seller's not telling you about it.
There's a great temptation in the market these days to roll back an odometer. Vehicles are built better, they last longer. Of course, a vehicle with less miles on it is worth more. There are unscrupulous people who would buy a vehicle at a salvage auction, one that has been totaled by an insurance company, put some paint on it, a few new parts, and then try and market it.
The weak spot here is the car's title. A new one gets generated every time the car is sold. A dishonest seller can easily get false information onto the title. That's where Carfax comes in, a computerized information service to help you find out about the car you're thinking of buying. If the car's title has been tampered with, the tampering will show up on the Carfax report. Anytime a car gets a new title in the U.S., Carfax keeps track.
These states report that information to us. We put it into our database, so when you come to us with a vehicle identification number, the 17-character number that's typically on the dashboard of the vehicle, we can give you all of the title history for that vehicle.
Carfax's database has the title histories of 380 million cars. About 19 million of those cars have questionable information somewhere in the title history. It's really a great safeguard for buyers, and it's not expensive. $12.50 gets you the complete title history of the car you want to find out about. The Carfax company is based in Columbia. Their number is 573-874-0834.
watching NBC4, the Tri-State News Channel. And now, Jane Hansen, Maurice Dubois, Joe Whitty, and Fran Charles. This is News Channel 4, Today in New York.
It is 6:16, 57 degrees. Chopper 4 giving us a beautiful look at Parsippany on this gorgeous Monday morning. Are you thinking about buying a used car? Well, before you get taken for a long ride, check out the June issue of Money Magazine. There are new ways to shop for old cars. Here to tell us about them is their automotive writer, Jerry Edgerton.
Morning,
Welcome.
Jane.
It's not the same thing as it used to be going shopping for a used car.
It's a better experience. Cars are better than they used to be. They're better made, so now they're better used cars. And the shopping experience itself has changed. The so-called used car superstores, CarMax and AutoNation, have come on the scene. They have better facilities, better shopping, and the dealers, in response to them, have improved the shopping experience. So it's not the same old sleazy, scary experience that it used to be.
The dealers themselves are doing something called certifying
That's
used
right.
cars?
They're certifying used cars. They're putting on extra inspections and warranties, and so although you'll pay extra, you'll probably get a more reliable used car with that. And they've done that chiefly in response to competition from the superstores.
Let's talk about specifically some things that will make you look like a pro when you're shopping for used cars. It says check the fender serial numbers.
That's right. When you open, this is things that you should look for, especially if you're buying from an individual, but from a dealer as well. If you open the hood, and you should see numbers on the fenders. If there are no numbers there, it probably means they've been replaced and they're not telling you there's been an accident.
Check the dipstick for color?
Yes. Take a look at the oil dipstick. If it's burned a bright yellow, that probably means that the oil hasn't been changed enough. Also a bad sign for the
Probably
engine.
the maintenance wasn't so good on that vehicle.
Maintenance was not so good.
Feel for rough paint.
This is similar to the first point. If the paint is rough, there probably has been an accident and it's been damage work done, and they're not telling you about it. Pass that car.
Then look for worn pedals.
This one is just a tip-off that there might be more mileage on the car than they're telling you. Also a bad sign.
Same thing with the seats, right?
With the seats as well. Right.
What about the internet?
The internet gives you a great new tool. You can go on there and find out what the price should be for a general class of car. Let's say what a 95 Chevy Blazer should now cost, and you can have some idea what your prices should be. But even beyond that, now you can go on the internet on a service called Carfax, and you can check an individual car. If you have the vehicle identification number for that car, you can find out if it's ever been totaled.
Wow.
Or if usually you can tell if the odometer's been turned back. This is a major advance for people that they didn't have a few years ago.
Boy, it sure is. Makes it easy.
It makes it easier anyway.
That's correct. All right, thank you, Jerry, so much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Maurice?
Buying a used car is always risky business because you never quite know what you're going to get. But what if a simple phone call or just a click of the mouse could tell you the history of your new vehicle? A Virginia-based company promises just that, and Call 3 reporter Mike Lurie has a story that could save you thousands of dollars.
When Sam Lopez of Modesto bought his used 95 Chevy Camaro, he thought he was getting a reliable car and a 3-year warranty. Instead, he discovered a big problem.
My air compressor pump went out, and I went to the Chevy car dealer.
Sam had to pay more than $1,000 for the repairs because his warranty wouldn't pay for it.
They wouldn't cover it because it's been salvaged, and my warranty is no longer effective.
Sam bought his car from a dealership back in Virginia, and no one told him the vehicle had a salvage title, a red flag that can often mean the car was previously in a big accident in which the cost of repairs was more than the car was actually worth. Sam's still making payments now on a car he'll have a hard time reselling. If only he knew.
I wouldn't have bought this car. I would have looked around for another car.
But Sam could have avoided this problem if he had known about Carfax, a company that researches more than 500 million vehicle records nationwide. Here's the report we pulled for Sam. It shows the Virginia salvage title was issued several months before he bought the car.
Can you hear that? It just revs up.
Amy Woods of Orangevale is another consumer singing the used car blues. She's still making payments on this 87 Volkswagen Vanagon that now has clutch problems so severe she can hardly get up her driveway.
It's very difficult to get up any hill. Very difficult. And this isn't a very big hill, but I can't get up it well at all.
But take a look at the Carfax report on Amy's vehicle. It shows the van was sent to a California smog check station 3 times in a row before it finally passed on the 4th try.
That tells me that if I would have known that prior to purchasing a vehicle, we would not have purchased the vehicle.
Well, it may be too late for Amy and Sam, but not for you. You can get some information by calling Carfax at this toll-free number. That number is 1-888-4-CARFAX. You can just give them the vehicle identification number, and in just a matter of minutes, you'll get the complete vehicle history right over the phone for just $20. You can also use the internet. The address is www.carfax.com. That's the Carfax website. The report will cost you just $12.50. And of course, if you don't want to pay for a service, the best bet is just to find a mechanic that's trusted that will check out the car ahead of time. But it is nice to have that information, and tomorrow we'll show you what happens when we go looking for used cars. Back to you in the studio.
Ah, you get that infamous shopping trip.
Right.
We look forward to it. Thanks.
Why pay thousands of dollars on an old clunker that's doomed to the auto graveyard when help is just a phone call or a mouse click away? Call 3's Mike Lurie joining us now to show you how to save a bundle if you are shopping for a used car. Mike?
Lois, the service is called Carfax, and it's a company with more than 500 million vehicle records on file from coast to coast. Now, yesterday we showed you consumers with auto problems who wish they had used Carfax. Tonight, we'll show you how to tell if that used car you're looking at is truly cherry or really a lemon.
All of these cars are for sale, but are they all good buys? Well, 3 of them have salvage titles, meaning an insurance company took possession of the car following a big claim, usually a major accident or a theft. We checked the vehicle identification numbers with Carfax and found this 91 Chevy Lumina van had previous problems, along with this 95 Geo Prism and this 90 Eagle Talon.
A salvage title does drop the price of the car. It does devalue it.
Doug Stabler manages this lot on Fulton Avenue in Sacramento. And to his credit, he told us right up front the vehicles had salvage titles. But some dealers and many private parties may not be as forthcoming.
It's really the only honest way to do it. I mean, if a car is salvaged and you know there's nothing wrong with it, you shouldn't be afraid to tell anybody.
And using Carfax, we discovered this vehicle, an 87 Mazda from a place called Cars for Less. Also has a salvage title. The manager here didn't want to talk about it on camera, but says he discloses the salvage title to his customers.
Carfax can provide valuable data not only for consumers, but for car dealerships as well. They want to make sure that trade-in you're offering has a clean vehicle history.
Well, primarily what we've found are salvage titles, cars that have been reconstructed and re-registered again. Odometer rollbacks, flood-damaged vehicles, that sort of thing.
Carfax enables this dealership to protect itself and its customers from buying problem vehicles.
We will not turn it back into the market. We won't resell it if it does show any problem.
It pays to be vigilant and do your homework before you buy any car. That means closely examining the vehicle's title and looking for the word salvage.
You could try to sneak it by because it's a small lettered word. It just barely says salvage, but always look at the title on the upper right-hand corner. There's no avoiding it. It's there. There's no two ways about it.
And you can contact Carfax directly by telephone. The number is toll-free on your screen. It is 1-888-4-CARFAX. Have your vehicle identification number ready, and you'll get the car history in just a matter of minutes. The fee is just $20. And if it's even less money on the web, for you to contact Carfax at www.carfax.com, that costs just $12.50. Now, you should know that the DMV offers similar information for $20, but instead of taking minutes, the average wait is 20 days. And by that time, the car you want may very well be gone.
Yeah, in this case, it pays to pay the extra fee to this Carfax.
And that small investment can save you thousands of dollars.
Sure can. All right, thanks, Mike.
Coverage you can count on with Chris Long, Darius Chisholm, John Fedko, Dennis Bowman. Live pictures from Chopper 11. This is Channel 11 News. Coverage you can count on.
Tonight, you saw it on Dateline. Cars that were once damaged in floods are cleaned up and sold to unsuspecting customers. Tonight, Channel 11's Renee Wallish found a way for you to find out everything about that used car. Renee.
Well, Darius, you've seen the ads, low mileage, never been totaled. But what do you really know about a used car? And short of buying a new one, what can you do? Well, we have the answer. Would you buy a car that looks like this? No way. But what if somebody fixed it, shined it up like one of these? How would you know it had ever been the biggest lemon in the lot? Well, it happened to John Grohl.
at some time it was wrecked and it was in a scrapyard for some reason.
Grohl bought a used truck from a private owner who he says never told him the truck had been wrecked. He found out when he checked the title.
The R means that it's a reconstructed. Reconstructed means that it was fixed, damaged, and fixed up.
Used car dealers say a salvaged car is hard for them to spot and that odometer tampering happens all the time.
We have had problems like that. You really don't know when you trade a car by looking at it.
So how can you be sure that you won't get stuck with a lemon? Well, you can call the Department of Motor Vehicles, but their title search could take weeks. Or you can log on to a new website. It will give you that information within minutes. It's called Carfax. Think of it as a computerized background check on any car or truck built since 1981. A service John Grohl didn't know about, but wishes he had.
We probably would have kept looking for another truck or something instead of buying that one.
Now, to get the Carfax information, all you need is the VIN number that's found on the dashboard of the car. If you phone it into Carfax, it'll cost you $20. If you log into their website, it will cost you $12.50. That computer address is www.carfax.com. Again, that's www.carfax.com. Reporting live, Renee Wallace, Channel 11 News.
Live from the news center of Alabama, this is NBC 13 News at 10.
How much do you really know about the history of your car? Tonight, a North Birmingham crash victim and an Alabama salvage business draw national attention. Good evening, everyone. I'm Teresa Durden.
And I'm Mike Moore. Thank you for joining us on this Friday evening, everyone. Well, 1 out of 9 used cars has a hidden problem. How would you know if your shiny vehicle was once a total wreck? Earlier tonight, Dateline NBC focused on 2 Alabama families who blame their tragedies on the car salvage business. Now, our Craig Patrick takes a closer look at the story for us. Craig?
Dateline also focused on a business run by a man named Benny Johnson. He declined to speak to us tonight, but we did find some other salvage companies who say the rules have changed in Alabama, and we now have some strict laws when it comes to rebuilding total losses.
Alan Spradlin brings old wrecks back to life. His company rebuilds cars that insurance companies write off as not worth repairing. But state law requires every one of his rebuilt cars to pass a vigorous state inspection.
Check the VIN numbers on the motor, the transmission, the frame. They'll have their private VINs that they check. Then you have to supply them with a list of the parts you replaced, the bill of sale for the parts. If everything checks out, they issue a title on it.
And here in Alabama, that new title will always read rebuilt as a warning to any prospective buyer. That's because Alabama passed some strict consumer protection laws in 1996. But there are some loopholes. See, a totaled car could get a facelift in another state, then slide into Alabama with no warnings. Dateline showed how one dealer brought a burned-out car in Louisiana back to life in North Alabama. And an Alabama couple died in that rebuilt car in a wreck where the airbag apparently did not deploy. Another accident crippled this Alabama teenager when her car flipped and the roof caved in. This family later discovered the roof had been cut and welded from another car. So how do you know whether or not your car has a spotty history? Well, reputable car dealers will usually run a national check. In fact, that's how this used car manager just discovered he accepted a total trade-in.
At this point, the car belongs to me. We will dispose of the car by running it through an auction and wholesaling the car.
So a national records check may be the quickest and safest way to really know the real history of your car.
And a company called Carfax run those national checks for a fee. It's $12.50 over the internet or $20 over the phone. If you're interested, here's the number and the web page. That's 1-888-4-CARFAX or www.carfax.com. But keep in mind that a lot of car dealerships will take care of that for you. That is, if they have the car you're interested in on their lot and if you ask. Mike.
Okay, thank you, Craig, for that live report.
Well, Robin and Jim, reports show that 1 out of 10 used cars has something wrong with it. But many times that problem is undetected by buyers until it's too late.
I call it a lemon. It's a lemon and a grapefruit.
Doris Shotwell is more than bitter over this used car. It conked out shortly after she bought it several years ago. And despite thousands of dollars worth of repairs, the only thing it's good for now is storage.
It makes me feel terrible. I wish everyone, before they try to buy a used car, I wish they check it out and take it someplace and make sure it's working good, because this is the worst experience we ever had.
It was an experience that Shotwell could have avoided if she knew even just a little about the car's history. We got part of the 1986 Buick Electra's background through a company called Carfax. Carfax has a nationwide database that tracks all reported information on a car. On Shotwell's car, there was nothing that immediately signaled a warning, although a look at past emissions inspection shows the car has been around the state a lot, from Trona to Sacramento to Riverside to Arvin. Now, if Shotwell knew that, maybe she could have opted for a car with a more stable residency and less mileage, because mileage can tell you a lot about the car's history. One thing you don't want to look back on and regret when buying a used car is that you did not check the odometer, especially since consumers lose $10 billion every year on odometer fraud. But getting a vehicle history report could save you money because it could show a possible odometer rollback, and having that information puts you in the driver's seat. The report can also keep you from going the wrong way and avoid a sour deal. Take, for instance, this Carfax report on a 1995 Pontiac minivan. In March of '96, the car was bought back by the manufacturer and received a lemon title. But 1 month later, the car was sold, and that owner also discovered it was a lemon. And knowing that information before you buy can save you a lot of heartache and money. Now, Carfax can't tell you everything about the history of a used car because it relies on information being reported to state agencies and from car auctions. Now, sometimes you can get a lot of background and other times you can't, but it's still a good start. If you're interested, there are 2 ways you can get a Carfax report: on the internet at www.carfax.com. That will cost you about $12.50, or you can call the 800 number. It's 1-800-FIND-VIN or 1-800-346-3846, and that will cost you about $20 to get a report. Now, tomorrow we'll actually go used car shopping and check out the history of some local used cars.
Used car without being used.
Well, Jim and Robin, yesterday we told you about a way to get a background check on your car through a company called Carfax. It checks out the history of a used car through the vehicle identification number. We put Carfax to the test with a local used car shopper, and we found we may have saved him some money.
Anything else? Oh, does the sunroof work? Has it?
For several months, David Dowdy has been through the highs and lows of shopping for a used car.
I think my biggest fear is getting burned. And I mean, I'm so nervous about which car.
Dowdy was sold on this Geo Prism until we provided him with a little background on the car via Carfax.
There's too many possible ifs.
That's because the background check on the 1990 Geo revealed a possible odometer rollback. Carfax says it could be a clerical mistake, but it was enough to change Dowdy's mind.
This is one of those type cars that you'd feel like you'd probably get burned on. And it sounded okay to start up, but you never know how it's going to be in about 50 or 60 miles down the line. Same with any used car. You just got to look at that from all angles.
Bottom line, it takes buyer savvy. There are a few other things you should check out before you buy a used car, like looking over the paint. Check for consistency. And if it's an older car with new paint, make sure you ask why. And make sure you take a good look at the car's tires. You want to check for uneven wear, and make sure that you check all of the tires. And check out all the doors. Make sure they open and close easily. Inside the car, turn the ignition and make sure all the warning lights come on. And when you start the car, make sure they go off. While the engine's warming up, you can also check the dashboard, underneath the floor mats, and even underneath the seat for signs of flooding, and then check the brake pedal for signs of wear. And of course, you should take the car for a test drive and check out a few more things. Make sure the car is riding smoothly. If it pulls in any direction, you could have trouble with the car's alignment. And when you put on the brakes, if the car pulls to the left or right, you could have a brake problem. And now, of course, it's also a good idea to take a used car you're interested in to a mechanic for a very thorough and good checkup. Now, if you want to get a Carfax report on a used car, you can do it on the internet at this website or by calling 1-800-FIND-VIN. Through the website, a report will cost you about $12.50, and on the phone, it will cost $20. Now, if you get a report and find some discrepancies, take that to the dealer or seller and ask them about those problems. If you're not satisfied with their response, you should probably walk away from the deal.
Now, Natalie, in the case of the possible odometer rollback, what did the car salesman say about that?
Well, the manager at Duckhoff Auto admitted it may not have been a clerical error that showed an odometer rollback. He said they go off the honesty of the people who trade the cars in, and sometimes people have traded cars in and maybe had the odometer replaced or changed, showing less mileage than the car really has, but those people don't tell the dealer. Even the used car dealer told us the absolute best thing you can do as a used car buyer is take the car to a mechanic for a very thorough check, because sometimes even the dealers don't know the full history of a car.
And outside of the mechanic, you really can't find out the true history of the car, right?
If you get a good Carfax report that has a lot of reporting agencies giving the information, then you may get a good background, but other than asking the questions and following the tips that we told you about, it's really no other way.